I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. This episode of the Rough Draft Diaries starts in about the same way the previous episode of the Rough Draft Diaries started. If you ask John Rockwood what his profession is, he'll state,
I was a facility manager at Owens Corning for 43 years.
It's an interesting answer for someone who has spent a good amount of their life attending rock and blues concerts, shooting photos of Bruce Springsteen, David Bowie, Lou Reed, Muddy Waters, Peter Frampton, the list goes on and on. So if you ask me, I would say John is a photographer, a music photographer. And those two interests, music and photography, are very important to John because they are connected. John became a photographer because he loved music.
My first love was music, and that led me into the photography. I went up to Ann Arbor Blues Festival in 1969, and it was all these magical people, Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. It was like a world I never knew existed. So I kind of ran away with the circus, and I got a camera. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I learned how to do it. And the camera gave me access to all these people. Yeah, the music definitely led me into the photography.
Eventually, John's photography caught the attention of a magazine. Exit magazine, to be specific, it's out of Bowling Green. They called John and offered him a position at the company, and John accepted, eager to capture more photos and, more importantly, more concerts.
That got me a lot of credentials. I started doing jobs, and I wound up doing everybody in the world, Jefferson Airplane, Frank Zappa, Kiss, all that stuff. And this is when they were trying to sell records. So there's like record reps all over the country, and, they covered Toledo. And back then, the sports arena, they had concerts almost every other week. There'd be 2 or 3 bands, Bob Seger, Humble Pie, and I got to meet all these people.
John has met his fair share of famous musicians, and he has the stories to prove it. He told me a few of them, and unfortunately we don't have enough time to fit them all in this one episode of the Rough Draft Diaries, but I'll try and share one of them.
Yeah, one's going on right now. Back in 1973, I was covering Bad Company. They were huge, and they came to Toledo, and we met their airplane. They had their own airplane. And Paul Rogers got off the plane. He was all whacked out. But anyhow, I went down to the sports arena. So I go in this men's room. There's Mickey Rouse with all his guitars lined up against urinals. So I take a picture. Well, about 5 years ago, my friend Dave Gierke says, this guy's in Toledo. He used to work with Savoy Brown and Bad Company. And just have dinner with us, please. So I go. And we start talking and stuff. And I whip out that picture. And he goes, oh, that's me. I can't believe it. And so we started talking. So it's been on and off. He's got a girlfriend in Toledo. And when he's not on tour with McCartney, he comes to town and we hang out and we have dinner and talk about rock and roll days. Unbelievable. Things just keep going.
And John could keep on going. He has accumulated many stories throughout his years spent behind the lens. But it's not always enjoyable to look back. Because if you do, then you realize how things are so different from what they used to be.
You cannot get close to bands anymore. Steve Miller was coming, and they said you got to be at this door at 8:30 or be at the back of the arena. You can take pictures for one song. I'm going, what? I used to be walking around, and the guys would go, he's all right. He's with the band. Yeah, it's all business now. When Kiss was in Toledo, and they had the Detroit album, I had to spend the day with them. They said, don't worry, you'll get your pictures tonight. Just be there. They came out, and I couldn't believe it. They're like posing and all kind. It was amazing. And then you look at their empire today, you can't get near them, They own everything. They own milk bottles. They own vending machines, everything, toys. It's all different.
John believes this shift in the music industry began after Woodstock, where artists and producers noticed how much money was at stake in their work. So they became protective of it. John also notices this cycle continuing on today and how music is produced.
Who's the guy from Canada? Justin Bieber. I used to go to Stratford with my wife, and he was riding around on a skateboard. That's where he started. And you look at him, he's in industry. I kind of feel like Clint Eastwood, get off of my lawn, because you know, it was more personal. Rock and roll was part of your life, your things. I can remember going to Boogie Records, and there'd be a line out front the night before because an album was coming out. It's not like that anymore. You know, it's just different.
John comparing himself to Clint Eastwood is a pretty good analogy. Eastwood has spent a long time within the film industry. I'm sure he's seen many changes. He shifted his own career from acting to directing. John is still pursuing photography, but it's a little different this time.
No, I still do. Like, they had a little blues festival down in Waterville. And it was great. It was Lou and the Imperials, and it was Johnny Rawls and some local guys. I just shot away and had a good time. But there's like no pressure. It wasn't like, oh, I got to have this stuff developed and get it to him by Monday or something. Just take it and sit on it. I got a lot of stuff that I'm sitting on, you know. Lots.
Hopefully John won't be sitting on it for too long, because I'd like to see it. For now, I'm Haley Taylor, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries.